You're listening to Creatives Crushing Anxiety, the podcast for online business creatives looking to minimize their anxiety and maximize their productivity through systems organization and time management. I'm your host, Dia Darling. Let's do this. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Creatives Crushing Anxiety. Now, today we are talking about silence. And I want to tell you a little bit about where this idea came from and why silence is in fact golden. A couple of weeks ago, I noticed that I was taking a shower and my phone was going to die because usually I'm listening to music in the shower. And I had to put it on the charger, and I had real silence for the first time in forever. I realized that literally I'm always listening to something. When I'm working, I'm listening to music or YouTube. When I go on walks, I'm listening to podcasts or audiobooks. When I fall asleep, I'm falling asleep to American Dad. When I shower, I'm listening to my music. So it's like I'm always being targeted, kind of, and not necessarily in a negative way, like people are out to get me, but I'm always consuming something, and I don't give myself enough time to really just be in my own mind. And I noticed that even with my meditation practice, nowadays, most of my meditations are guided meditations. There was a time when I was still at my 9 to 5 that in order to just really take care of myself and pause, once I got off of work, I would have either a 10 to 20 minute period where I just sat in silence before I jumped into what was my side hustle at the time. And that was always really cleaning for me. I feel like it cleaned me out. That sounds really gross. But it was just really kind of therapeutic. And so I wanted to get back into the habit of having these silent moments and having them consciously and intentionally. So I decided to just kind of look at some of the benefits of silence. And I know right now, at the time that I'm recording this, we are right in the midst of COVID-19. And a lot of people are like freaking out, especially there's a lot of people, as you know, some of you guys may know, I'm a crisis counselor volunteer, and we get a lot of messages from people reaching out saying that they feel really isolated and really alone right now. So I know silence can sometimes be scary, but when you do it intentionally, it can have a lot of benefits. And I wanted to talk about some of those benefits. And I just think that it'll really help to just kind of stop and pause and think of these, and then also kind of implement them, or actually also implement them in your life, not kind of, just really give yourself time to think. And I wanted to share some of those benefits with you. Now, the first benefit is you're giving space for things to come. So you're opening up space, because when I was in that phase, and I can't even tell you how long I've been in that phase, when I was in the phase of constantly taking stuff in, constantly listening to things, constantly not being alone with my thoughts. And it's funny, you would think if you're home by yourself a lot, especially right now when we're in quarantine and social distancing, that you're like, oh, you're alone with your thoughts all the time. And it's like, no, I'm alone with Netflix all the time. So when you actually give yourself a moment just to pause, that's when the ideas come in. I don't know if it's just me, and I actually doubt that it is, that whenever I allow myself to just be really quiet, that's when I get ideas. That's when new things are born and created into the world, because I'm not being bombarded with Sarah Bareilles' lyrics or Karen Kilgariff and Georgia Hardstark's commentary on a true crime case. I am actually letting myself just be with myself, and that's when I'm letting source and my intuition just really speak up. And a lot of times that's when you can find clarity and healing on things. So the first thing is definitely that it just opens up for new things to happen. Now, the next thing is you get out of your own head. And this is kind of incorporated with journaling. I feel like when I do journal, I typically either play some classical music that doesn't have lyrics, or I sit in silence. A lot of times I like to sit in silence for a few minutes, especially if it's like I feel like I need to journal, but I don't necessarily know what it is I want to journal about or what I need to what needs to come out of me. So I like to just sit in silence for like 5 minutes before I journal, and then so many things will come out of me. And sometimes it's clarity, or it's an answer to something. Sometimes it's healing. Sometimes it's solving a problem. Like, so many things can happen for you. So when you journal in that space of silence, you're just letting your mind and, once again, your intuition flow out and see what's really there for you. It's again, like, this whole thing is so therapeutic. Just being able to journal in your thoughts and not have things triggering you. I know for me, like, I'm a very emotional person. So even when I listen to certain songs, if I'm trying to journal and I'm listening to songs with lyrics, I will sometimes, what will come up for me will be something that relates to the song. So if it's a song that reminds me of an ex or a friendship or a family member I've lost, then it's like, oh no, okay, this is what I'm writing about, but it's not the thing that I really was needing to get out. It's just something that was very easy to come up on the surface level because it was triggered. Like, a great example of this is right before I recorded this video, I had my playlist going, and Heaven's Not Too Far Away by We3 came on. And if you have not heard that, I'm actually going to link to it in the show notes. It is a band of two brothers and a sister, and they were on one of those reality shows. I didn't watch the show, but I saw the clip on Facebook and completely like fell in love with the song. But it's literally a song about their mother dying of cancer, and I know I can't listen to it without crying. Like, I heard that first line and I was like, oh nope, next, because I know that it shifts my mood. And that's one of the great things about music, but that's also one of the dangerous things about music when you're really trying to get in touch with yourself, is it can spur things and it can trigger things, good and bad. So you may have something that you need to work through that's really heavy, but if a happy song comes on, you start thinking about other things, which is a good, thing to do in general. But when you're trying to work through the hard stuff, you do sometimes just need to really sit in it and experience it and feel it. Now, the third benefit on the list is you get separation from the problem. And this is kind of the opposite of the last thing. But a lot of times when you sit in silence and you're away from the thing that's stressing you out and you just allow yourself to be in the now. And when I say, and I should have said this earlier, but when I say sit in silence, you're being very, very mindful of the silence. You're hearing the sound of the air conditioner. You're feeling the velvet of the couch. You're even maybe hearing your breath, or you're feeling your heartbeat in a certain part of your body. So you're very, very conscious in it. And of course, your mind will drift, just like with meditation. Things will come up, and you just kind of push those things to the side, acknowledge them, but then just get back to that being in the moment. And a lot of times when you do that and you're stepping away from something, say if you're very, very stressed out about a project and you're trying to find a solution to something, that is when you will come back to it afterwards and you'll be like, oh, this is what I'll do. And it's because you've given your brain the time to consciously step away, while maybe subconsciously you're like, I'm figuring this out. And ding, because you weren't consciously putting so much energy into it, your body could finally, or your mind could finally solve the problem. So that is the third benefit of silence and why silence is golden. Now, the fourth and final thing on the list, which you probably can guess, is that you get to connect to your intuition. When you're being very mindful and you're sitting in silence, and this is what I wanted to clarify. When I say sitting in silence, like, I'm basically saying meditate, but not to where it's like this whole thing where you're like, I have to sit there for 30 minutes. I'm saying set a timer for 3 minutes, 5 minutes, hell, 1 minute, if that's all you feel like you can do. I would say at least 5 minutes, but work your way up. But when you sit there and you allow yourself to just stop being bombarded and to breathe in the present moment, once again, that's when your intuition has a chance to speak up to you. And what I've noticed a lot of the times is while, when you're meditating or you're sitting in silence, you want to like acknowledge your thoughts and then move forward, that when something really, really comes out, it's going to stick with you after that 5 minutes. So, and then to take it back to journaling, a lot of times that's why I love the practice of sitting in that silence and then journaling, because that's when those ideas will just flow out. So this is a really, really short episode, and don't know if it's going to be a mini episode. We'll see how long I talked. But I really just wanted to share those tips with you and give you some inspiration for enjoying some of the silence that you may be dealing with right now. And it is totally okay if that's a scary thought to you, and the idea of just really sitting with your thoughts may feel like a lot. And while I am recommending that you try it just completely silent, there are so many resources. There's apps, and I'll share links to a few that I use, but there's also so many free videos on YouTube that you can check out where you can start with a guided meditation, and there's all different links. And the benefit of this is it gets you into that habit of not doing. So while the guided meditation may be telling you, take a deep breath, notice the things that are happening around you, and it's still talking, so you're still kind of being, talked to, picked at, I guess. It gets you into the habit of just being able to stop and do nothing. And once you can kind of master that, then you can try it without any sort of guided meditation or any assisted aid. And that's when I feel like you can really, really get the benefits. Now, I'm not one of those people who will sit there for 3 hours straight and just sit in silence and be like, oh, no, I'm not there yet. I don't know if I'm ever going to be there. I don't know if that's something that I want to aspire to. But I know that taking the time to just really sit and reflect and connect with myself is when I feel my best, when my best ideas are born, when I get clarity on problems, and when I just feel really in touch with who I am. So thanks for listening to this episode.
This has been Creative Crushing Anxiety. For more podcast episodes, visit diadarling.com. Did you enjoy this episode? Then go ahead and leave a review on iTunes. You can also subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play. Catch you next time.